Welcome into a Tuesday edition of Daily Faceoff live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. He is Colby Cohn, and the show is brought to you by Fountain Tire. They specialize in tire and auto service, and you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service because at Fountain Tire, they do both. They treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle. If you need new tires or maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop in a Fountain Tire and they will sort you out. And right now you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 select tires, including Goodyear, up until December 14th, plus an extra $50 on any service of $150 or more. Some restrictions apply. FountainTire.com. I'm rocking the Phillies hat because I'm doing the show with someone from Philly, even though every day I do the show with someone from Philly. But Colby Cohn is in for Frank Saravalli once again. Colby, how's it going?
It's going. I love the pride of Philadelphia. You came for your visit. You had your cheesesteaks. You took in an Eagles game. Did you take in a Philly? No, there was no baseball when you came, but you still got the merch. So you're making me feel right at home, as you always do, my friend.
Yeah, that's what I was going for here, Cole. Before we start fighting about Hall of Fame cases and what the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to do and all that stuff, Carter Hutton is going to swing by in a little bit. But to kick off the show, I wanted to put a nice little bow on Hall of Fame weekend. The induction ceremony was last night in Toronto. That's where Frank was, and he'll be back on this show tomorrow, and I'm sure he'll have some stories about it. But yesterday, Colby, you talked about Jeremy Roenick and the personality, so it was really no surprise to hear him steal the show, including telling this beautiful story. Let's take a listen.
88, the Blackhawks drafted me 8th overall in the first round. And surprising, seeing I was only 5'10 and 150 pounds. I'm convinced the deciding factor of their pick came the night before the draft in a restaurant bathroom. Standing next to Mike Keenan at a urinal, he oddly asked me, "You have any balls, kid?" Feeling a bit uncomfortable because of the current situation, I said, "Enough to play for you." Thank goodness he didn't look over the divider. I might not have been their first pick that year.
Only JR. Hey, Cole.
Oh my God. I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect of a speech. He stayed true to himself. Such an incredible guy. Give a little shout out to the rest of his family. Tracy was there with them. His kids were both there. They're the best. Like there aren't many people in hockey that have been better to me in my life. And I'll tell you, like, you hang out with JR, you better not try to pay for a meal because he might kick your ass. And he's a Hall of Famer, man. And I couldn't be happier for him.
There was a really good tribute by Lanny McDonald in the Hockey Hall of Fame to the Gaudreau brothers as well. I thought that was very touching. Pavel Datsyuk's speech, I thought, was good as he worked his way through it. He said his opponents were his worst enemy. I think that might have been the other way around. He was his opponent's worst enemy. But Colby, something we talked about yesterday was Datsyuk and his legendary O stick. And then ahead of the Hall of Fame game, how about that? CCM remade it for him in a fresh Hall of Fame color as well. That thing looked sick.
Yeah, and I'll never forget, man. Those things were heavy too. Like they probably weigh 100% more than what sticks weigh now. So I think they must have been watching the show, Tyler. That would be my guess where they came up with that idea.
Yeah, I remember I played against a guy in beer league who was using one a few years ago, and I was like, dude, don't even risk breaking that. I was like, hang it up on a wall or something. The O stick and Datsyuk synonymous with each other. What stick was synonymous with Colby Cohen?
The Easton Synergy SE grip. The one that had the red, it was like the silver one with the red sort of fine details. That was my go-to as my favorite stick. Recently, a kid showed me how to actually get one of them made through this company in Canada, which I'm trying and I'm waiting, and I just can't wait to see if it comes through. I've got an Easton stick flanked on me right now, so I'm an Easton guy.
I like that. All right. Away from last night in the 2024 class, I think the interesting conversation now turns to what's going to happen with next year's class, Colby. And the crop of first ballot options is certainly a good one. You have Joe Thornton, Duncan Keith, Carey Price, Zdeno Chara, Ryan Getzlav, Tuukka Rask, and Jason Spezza. There are some other names. Our pal Paul Paduti over at dailyfaceoff.com, as he always does, knocked it out of the park with an article kind of going through all of these options. But when you look at those first-time eligible players, Colby, which one of them to you have earned the distinction of being first ballot Hall of Famers.
Yeah, well, I think Zdeno Chara and Joe Thornton are easy. I think Duncan Keith is easy. And then I think from there, there's debate. I think a lot of people would probably say Carey Price. You reminded me before the show that he won a Hart Trophy. Obviously never won a Stanley Cup. I think Duncan Keith, again, I think I already said this, but to me, he's a slam dunk first ballot type of guy. And the most interesting name on there that I think sparks the most debate is Ryan Getzlaf. Because at first thought, it's yes. How could he not be? But then you started digging into his numbers a little bit and reading some things off to me about his best seasons. And look, yeah, he had over 1,000 points in about 1,150 so NHL games. I think he had 1,020 points or something like that. But his playoff numbers for me, Tyler, he's a point a game player in the National Hockey League playoffs over 125 games. And he won a Stanley Cup as a captain, as a leader. Was he the captain or was Chris Brown?
No, that was his rookie season.
Yeah,
they won.
Okay, so you're right. So that goes back a long way. So I stand corrected on that. But certainly some names that I think are slam dunks in that group.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to agree on the three, and Paul Paduti kind of did in his piece as well. Like it's Keith, it's Chara, it's Thornton. They are all locks. My thing with Getzlaf is he comes back to kind of the debate of do you value peak or longevity? And that's almost in a way how him and Carey Price are a little bit different, because Getzlaf, I mean, they both played a similar amount of years. Price struggled to stay healthy for some stretches, but you look at Getzlaf, like his career high in points was 91. His career high in goals was 31. And you think, okay, good defensive forward, but he never finished higher than 10th in Selke voting. Like he was never considered the best or one of the best three defensive forwards at any given point in his career. He was never one of the highest scorers in the league. So yes, the longevity is impressive. Yes, he won internationally and he won a Stanley Cup back in his first season. But if I had to pick between him and Carey Price, I think it's a stone cold lock that Carey Price is your guy. For a goalie to win a Hart Trophy is insane. Like that kind of stuff happens once in a generation. And then you go through in 7 of his, I know it was technically a 15-year career, but there were 2 seasons in there where he played under 15 games because of injury. Another one where he played under 30. So if you take those out, let's call his career a 12-year career. He was top 10 in Vezina voting 10 or 7 of those 12 times. Like he was consistently one of the best goalies in the NHL. He has the hardware to back it up. He won internationally, which I get the Stanley Cup goes to Getzlaf and it doesn't for Price, but I don't want to not Carey Price for him playing for a Montreal organization that never figured it out.
Yeah, and let me just ask you this though, because we said with Getzlaf 91 points. I'd be interested to see what the points leaders were. You think about some of the years that Ryan Getzlaf was an impact player in the National Hockey League, and scoring was down a little bit, I think, during those times, right? Like he was on the back 9 of his career when things started to really pick up again with scoring, and we started seeing 5-6 goal games, and we started seeing those goals per game averages shoot up. Obviously, he was around during the lockout when they changed the rules. He was just kind of entering the league where it became not as much of a quote unquote clutch and grab type of situation. So I bet you if you took his numbers and you took that 91 point year and you put him in today's NHL, he's probably does be a 110 point guy in that type of situation.
Yeah, and you know what? I just went quickly, and in fairness to Getzlaf, the year he had 91 points, that was 7th in the league. The year he had 87, that was actually 2nd in the NHL.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Ding, 1 point for Colby in the argument, but I still think I would roll with Carey Price. Maybe a Pat, if you want to put in the YouTube, and we'll talk about it in AskDFO, let the chat decide. If they had to pick Getzlaf and Price, which one would they put in the Hall if you could only choose one to go with next year? But let's get to the NHL from last night, Colby. There were a couple of interesting results, and we're actually staying in PA for both of them. But the Pittsburgh Penguins look about as lifeless as you can look. That game was over basically before it even started, to use the old cliche. It was 6 goals in the first period for the Dallas Stars as they rout the Penguins 7-1. And listen, if this was any other team with any other coach, it's that coach is fired already. Like, you can't be off to that miserable of a start and get boat raced the way you do and not need some sort of a change. but it's Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh. He's very entrenched with ownership. He's entrenched in the identity of this team. So it's hard to imagine them making a change, but something's got to give here.
Yeah, something really does have to give. And I mean, it's funny because I went to turn that game on just to check in with it about, 3/4 through the first period. And I pulled up the NHL app and I thought I was like seeing things 6-0. Really? I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch the Flyers game. I'm going to watch the other games that are on. Although some of the games were a little bit later last night, but you got to wonder, right? He brought in David Quinn this year. So he's a first-time assistant coach with this staff. He does have head coaching experience. He is a Boston guy as well. He is well capable of being a guy if they needed him to. I wouldn't really see them going out and going after Joel Quenneville. Maybe it's Todd McClellan. I don't know. But, I don't see Fenway Sports Group and everything that they're all about marrying with Joel Quenneville. It just doesn't make sense to me. My bigger issue here is Kyle Dubas. It really is. What is he doing with this team? What is the direction, right? Like, he should have made some hard decisions and he didn't. And I don't know if they were his decisions or ownership's decisions, but to me, that's the guy you really got to point fingers to, because we know Mike Sullivan can coach. We already know that. He's one of the best there is, and he's not going to be out of work if it ends in Pittsburgh very long. There's a reason he's Team USA's coach. So to me, I'm looking at roster construction and you got major problems.
100%. And I know, again, it's easy to sit here and be like, well, they just got to rebuild. But when you look at the way that core is locked up, like Erik Karlsson, $9.9 million for this year and 2 more. Unless you're keeping half, I can't imagine a contending team's going to be willing to step up and touch that. Chris Letang, $6.1 million, 3 more years after this. And you can see the way his production's fallen off. Evgeny Malkin, like, that's maybe the one guy who you'd be able to, if you kept half, Malkin at $3 million for this year and next, you're getting a haul for that guy. No doubt about it. Sidney Crosby has kind of been steadfast in saying he's not going anywhere, and he signed the extension. So you sit here and you go, well, they got to rebuild, but it's like, okay, you could maybe trade Malkin. Other than that, what are you going to do? Their pending UFAs stink. It's up front. It's Lars Eller, Anthony Beauvillier, Drew O'Connor, and Jesse Puljujarvi. On the blue line, it's Marcus Pettersson, Matt Grzelcyk, and Ryan Shea. Like, no one there is getting you a 3rd round pick, let alone a 2nd or a 1st round pick. Like, they're just screwed. They're pigeonholed into waiting out the next 3 seasons because Sid doesn't want to go anywhere, and they're not really going to get anything for anyone else unless they bite the bullet and trade Evgeny Malkin, who has a full no trade clause.
It hasn't been good work by Kyle Dubas. It just hasn't. They gave him total control. He became a president. He named himself GM. At least you know one thing. The accountability all falls on him. He can't blame a president. He can't blame a general manager. He's the only guy that you can point fingers at and blame. And it just hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. Like, to me, he's the number one guy I'm looking at as the problem as to what he's done. And look, Kyle Davidson, a first-time GM, walked away from Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. And I know they were unpopular decisions, but he had to do it to rebuild. You can't rebuild with those guys, right? And people were mad, but they went out and they got Bedard. They got a little lucky. They got Bedard. They've made some other picks. Now they're starting to come back the other way. Fans are bought into the rebuild. What's Pittsburgh doing? If I was a Penguins fan, I'd be pissed. I wouldn't show up either. And right now, they're not.
Yeah. JC is in. Crosby's in a Ray Bourque situation. Leave to win or stay and miss the playoffs. I mean, it's different than Ray Bourque because Sid's won, right? Like, Sid's career will end at some point, and he'll be known as one of the best winners or the premier winner of his generation. Hockey sense, it's the Karlsson trade, it's the Jarry contract, and we'll chat a bit more about Tristan Jarry with Carter Hutton coming up in the blue paint. Things aren't going good in Pittsburgh. Things aren't going good in Philadelphia. And it begs the question of, when will we see playoff hockey in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania next? It's going to be a long time, Colby. But for last night, it was Matvei Michkov stepping up and stealing the show, coming off getting healthy, scratched twice. He sets up 1 goal. He scores another, which was an absolute beauty. And I think we got the video of it to roll along too. But he finishes with a goal and an assist. and he pots one in the shootout. Again, I was someone who was like, what the hell is John Tortorella doing? I know our guy Anthony DeMarco wrote a piece and said, by all reports in Philly, Michkov actually responded well to it and was motivated to get back into the lineup. But he came through and delivered with a big night last night. I know it was against San Jose, but again, I think it says something about the player here, the way he came out after being healthy scratched twice and did what he did.
Look, I think the Flyers, had they not used the word healthy scratch like everybody else is doing with their young players, this would have been completely different. And what I said on this show yesterday, my show this morning, and my show yesterday was that this was the right decision by the Philadelphia Flyers. The adults in the room, a.k.a. John Tortorella and Danny Briere and maybe Keith Jones, they made a decision to protect their prized piece. Their guy who was not... struggling is not the right word, but just surviving. You don't want a player who's playing 13 minutes a night at 19 and surviving. You want these players to set up for success. So you sit them down for 2 road games against teams that are top of the league, and you give them a little bit of a rest and a little bit of a reset. You put him back into the lineup at a home game against a bad team, a team where he's going to build some confidence. His legs were apparent. He looked like he had way more energy. You watch him get into the net. You watch him getting between the dots. He looked like the guy we saw early in the season. Forget the power play. Even if he's not playing well, he's good on the power play. He's better than anything they have on the power play. But you got to think long-term with Matvei Michkov, and that's what the Flyers are doing. It's probably not the last time he's going to be in the press box this year. So brace yourself. But again, these are people that know more than you. Let them do their jobs and let them, yes, Tyler, even you, okay? Let them do their jobs and let them develop their superstar, because this year, Flyers are bad. You got to think long-term with this kid.
Yeah, and Jeremiah says that Colby's 100%. This is load management. Anaheim and San Jose are doing the same thing. They just brand it differently, but I can also imagine the look on John Tortorella's face when someone comes in and goes, hey, do you maybe want to call it load management in your press conference? You would get a probably pretty prompt fuck off.
Let me just say one thing. Everybody's quick to burn torch to the ground, and I don't agree with everything he did. I crushed him last year when he healthy scratched Sean Couturier. I was going through it for his throat. But in this situation, he's given Michkov more of a leash than any young player he's probably ever given in his entire career. He's handling him differently than any player he's ever dealt with. And I guarantee it. Go through the history. Look at all the young stars that have played for Torts and been treated way differently by Torts. He's handling this kid with love and care, not just love and care. Some warm love, some tough love. Some warm love, some tough love. So I'm just saying, I'm not a blind follower of John Tortorella, but on this topic, I'm in lockstep with him.
All right, let's keep cruising along with the show. We got to get to our big segment. It's the Blue Paint with Carter Hutton. Always a pleasure to welcome in former NHL goaltender and dear friend of the program, Carter Hutton. Huts, how's it going?
Oh, good. I joined on early just to hear the big segment there. Colb's good run. I love it, boys. Things are good over here.
I figured you'd be buzzing today because UMass Lowell clipped BU 1 out of 2 this weekend. I was waiting for a text from you.
Yeah. You got to love that upset. I still remember playing at BU, skating out for a playoff series, and I turn around starting lineup, and my phone number is across the glass. I think I had about 400 missed calls. You name it, I was getting it. BU knows how to lay it on. They hated me.
That's good stuff. Let's start on a positive note with our look around the NHL. Connor Hellebuck is basically unbeatable right now. 1 goal against in his last 3 games. I think he's the runaway favorite on Bet365 for the Vezina. Should we just give it to him now and just say, everybody else, don't worry about it? We won't even vote this year.
Yeah, I think when you look at the odds for the Vezina right now, he's plus 200 to win. And the only guy even close right now is Shesterkin at plus 240. And, with a 935 save percentage, the way he has been playing is unbelievable. And this Jets team in total has been so good. What I love about Connor Hellebuck is his capacity to just stay within the moment, right? He's so minimalistic. He uses his size well. And that's why you see him with 11-1 record. He can manage the game so well. So his energy distribution is so low. Like when I look at myself, when I played, once I started playing 3-4 games a week, I was toast because I had to work so much harder than this guy. He makes it look so easy, and this Jets team is looking very, very dynamic in the Central.
Hutz, let me ask you, looking around the league, is there one goaltender that's been the biggest surprise to you that you just didn't expect?
Honestly, like there's a few guys that I could pick out, but Lucas Dostal, I think what he's doing right now in Anaheim would be my guy. I think he has just been so compact, and especially playing on a team that is still younger in that kind of rebuild phase where they've kept a few guys around, but he's done such a good job. And I think if I was trying to show a younger goalie a guy to maintain your game around, it would be him. Especially, he's not a big guy. You talk about Hellebuck, you see all these guys that are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", having success. He does a great job at his size, managing the game, managing the crease. And, I think he's been impressive since the World Championships last year. I think that really, he's using that as a springboard this year into this season.
All right, let's stay in the state of Pennsylvania because we talked about this team earlier, and I can't responsibly have you on this show and not ask you about the disaster in Pittsburgh. And where does Tristan Jarry fit into all this? He's coming back from his conditioning stint. We know how it started for him this year. And you being the resident goalie expert here, like, is there hope that he finds his game and he can get back to form? Or are we talking about a real lost cause this season?
I don't want to say lost cause at all because, every goalie has been through highs and lows, but with Tristan Jarry, it seems like it's endless right now. At least the conditioning stint went well. He went 4-0-1, 926 save percentage. And sometimes playing the American League can be trickier, right? Because it's a different game. Things maybe open up a bit because of defense, of miscues more in the American League. But I think for this Pens team, he's got to get back to where he can be a difference maker every night because it has been ugly to start here. And you look at, I also feel like having Joel Blomqvist there isn't the right play. They got to get him in the minors, protect him. You don't want him taking his bumps and bruises. But Tristan Jarry is 29 years old. He's played in the NHL for a long time. It's time for him to step up or it's time to move on. Because at this point, I think everyone in Pittsburgh is getting sick of this up and down. They need someone that can be solid every night.
There's just no way I think they could even move him. Like, what? Never mind a contending team. What middling team? Like, if you were a GM, would you sign up for 3 more years of this guy at 5.3 mil?
No chance. I'll never knock a guy for getting paid too much, but at this point, if he can come back and at least be stable with Ned being there, because Nedeljkovic is a goalie that can play very well. We've seen that through and through, but he's not a 1A guy. He's not a guy that can carry the mail. Where I think if they can get a 1A, 1B going and kind of feed off each other, there is potential. But the way Jarry has started is horrible. We've seen this in years past where he's taken a lot of heat come playoff time and summertime. This is where, at this point, it's put up or shut up, I think, for Tristan Jarry if he wants to continue on with the Pens or with anybody at this point.
Yeah. Oh, man. Another disaster contract on the Pittsburgh Penguins books. Jeremiah with one in the chat. He's telling me anytime a fan talks shit about Stuart Skinner, just flash up the Jarry stats. And that ties in to our next one here, Carter. There have been 5 Canadian-born goalies this year who have played 10 or more games. None of them have a save percentage above 900. What is Team Canada going to do at the Four Nations Faceoff? What would you do if you were in charge?
I know. It's wild sitting here as a Canadian goalie growing up in Canada that we don't have a guy. Like, we don't have the guy. We had Carey Price. We had Brodeur, Fleury for a lot of years. Patrick Waugh. There's been so many goalies over time where this year you look at what we have and there's some guys with experience, right? Stanley Cup runs. I think right now my guy would be Jordan Binnington if I had to gun to my head. I also think about Adin Hill. I also think about Stuart Skinner. But for me, there is those, the ups and downs of Adin Hill and Stuart Skinner are the biggest question mark for me. I think with those 3 guys, you have potential. But then maybe as your number 3, I go off the board a little bit. I start thinking about guys that are veteran players. I start thinking about Marc-Andre Fleury and maybe potentially Cam Talbot. These guys have played a lot of good games and they have a lot of experience. So what I think is the mental capacity to be thrown into a game, especially in a short tournament where we talk about the ups and downs of those other guys, where gun to our head, you have to go to one of these guys. They have experience. They have age to go in there and play well in one game. But I think right now, Jordan Binnington is your guy you're going to see in the Team Canada jersey to start.
I like the Fleury. I like that. I never really thought about that, but you get 3 goalies. Why wouldn't you bring Fleury? You really have nothing to lose because of the other guys, although Mackenzie Blackwood has played some better hockey as of late. So you got to think he at least puts himself on their radar.
So for me, I love Blackwood. I'm a big Blackwood fan. He's a Thunder Bay boy. I train with him all the time. My worry in this situation, Colby, would be like when Blackwood is great, he's busy, right? And now you got to think when they go into a tournament like this, he's going to be protected. It's going to be one of those games where it's not a lot. That's kind of why I throw Cam Talbot in the mix, because I look at the success he had with the LA Kings when he didn't get a lot of work, when he's able to hold that together. So I think as we move forward toward the Olympics, Mackenzie Blackwood is someone that is in the conversation. He has the skill set, the size, but for right now as that number 3 position, I just think someone that's a veteran that can handle the moment and being thrown in, it's not going to be overwhelming.
How about this for a Mackenzie Blackwood stat? In 2 games this year where he's faced under 25 shots, he's allowed a total of 9 goals. In the 2 games where he's faced north of 40, he's allowed 5 goals. Half as many goals in the games where he faces nearly twice as many shots. That's crazy.
I watched that San Jose, New Jersey game 2 nights ago on the beginning of San Jose's back-to-back. I mean, they hung on for dear life, and Blackwood made save after save down the stretch against the Devils. So when you said that recent memory completely just rung true. I never would have thought about that. That's why we have you. That's why you're the goalie expert.
That's why I have it. I remember when I played, I had a similar stat line. 35 shots or over. I don't have the numbers, but I was always better when I was busier, right? It takes experience to be good when you don't get as many shots. I always draw back to Ryan Miller trade, right? He went from Buffalo where he was the guy, goes to St. Louis, and he struggled not being busy, right? It's a different mindset and it's a different game to play in net.
Huts, always love the insight, man. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Moving along to our daily face-off inbox question. It's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. Plus, you can get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program. Find out more, charmdiamondcenters.com. Colby, the people are with me. 69% saying Carey Price gets in over Ryan Getzlaf, so score 1 for your Remchuk.
Hey, look, I also got a text message from one of my Flyers Warriors players who said Getzlaf over Price. So I only have what I have here in my cell phone, and that's score 1 for me. So look, I'm not sitting here saying Carey Price shouldn't or won't get in. I just think it's a conversation to have. I think Carey Price is well deserved. We'll see what happens. I think the other 3 are like no-brainers, right? He's whatever's right under a no-brainer.
Dylan is in. AskDFO. What's the ceiling for Kirill Kaprizov this year? Colby, do you think this is a guy who has Hart Trophy potential?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I really don't. I mean, you look at what he's doing. You look at the way he's elevating his entire team. You look at the production. You look at the situation. He's looking for a new contract, so he's got extra motivation. I don't see why not.
If you go look at the Hart Trophy odds over with our friends at Bet365, I mean, Kaprizov rocketing up the Rocket Richard odds, and that is translating. He is now the odds-on favorite to win the Hart Trophy at Bet365, coming in at plus 375.
Massive bummer we won't see him in the Four Nations. Massive bummer.
I mean, hey, let's go through the top, call it 8 guys that are favorites for the Hart Trophy right now. Kaprizov won't see, Kucherov won't see, Panarin won't see, Draisaitl won't see. 4 of the top 8 players in the league, you could argue this year, won't be there.
Yeah, I look forward to the Olympics. That's all I can say. I hope Russia's got a team by the time we get back to that, because again, you're leaving out when it comes to hockey. Put all the other stuff aside. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking strictly hockey here. These are some of the best players in the world and biggest names in our sport. We want to see them on the international level, right? Make them play with the blank jerseys or whatever you want to do, but let's make sure they're there.
Let's move along to our daily bets for the day, brought to you by Bet365. You can download the app today and use the promo code NATION, NATION, to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, never ordinary at Bet365. A couple of quick ones here. One, shot prop parlay. Both Evan Rodriguez and Justin Falk have hit this in 3 of their last 4. You play them together, it is plus 132. And a little same-game parlay tonight. The Edmonton Oilers hosting the New York Islanders. I think Connor McDavid and this Oilers offense is starting to find their stride. They popped 7 on the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday. They're at home against the Islanders. Give me plus 200 when you play the Oilers on the puck line with Connor McDavid to get 2+ points. Shout out to Bet365. That brings us to garbage time for the day. And let's wrap up the show. And our last couple have been very, very heavily Hockey Hall of Fame. So let's end there. I enjoyed this clip from Brian Burke and Lou Lamoriello. Let's take a
thing
listen.
about this guy, maybe we don't know in the hockey world. You talking about Lou Lamoriello?
He doesn't know?
No, the listeners
knows
might not
everything.
know. Does he know everything?
No, I'm the reason I went to law school is because of Lou Lamoriello. He talked me into going. He insisted that I go. Went to Harvard Law School. All because of him. Changed my life.
I don't know if they know Brian played for me for 4 years in college.
Oh, yeah. No, that's right. Yeah. What kind of player was he? What's the scouting report?
He was hard-nosed the same way he is today. Competed every night. And a great story about Brian. Not a prolific scorer, but the night that he got accepted in Harvard Law School, he got a hat trick against New Hampshire.
Yep, they're rated number 2 in the country. I think I got my only hat trick.
I think he's got all 3 pucks, too.
How are you?
I like the joke that he's got all 3 pucks at the end there. A nice little story between Lou Lamoriello and Brian Burke to wrap up a couple of Hall of Fame themed shows. Colby, appreciated your time these last couple of days. Thanks for doing this. You can find more of Colby, Morning Cup of Hockey, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. You always give me shit when I don't give you your plugs, so there you go.
I love it. I love it. And you got Monday through Thursday. So you nailed that one. You're on your game today. I got to tell you, it's like you went up a level just because it was me. And tomorrow when Frank comes back, you go right back down a couple of levels. All right. I don't want him to get your A game.
That is a wrap on today's edition of the show. Frank is back tomorrow. John Goins will swing by with the Coaches Room. Make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube, and we will talk again tomorrow. Same time tomorrow, knuckleheads, noon Eastern. See you then. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.